Hello and welcome to the TC Music Show Beethoven Special. I hope you're going to enjoy this. It'll give you insights and facts about the great man that perhaps you didn't know. So let's get on with the show. And thanks for joining.
The life of the great composer Beethoven begins, not in Germany, but in Antwerp, where his family spoke Flemish. In 1712, there are two distantly related branches of the Beethoven family who both had sons born in the year. One Ludwig van Beethoven in January the 5th and the other in December 23rd. This was the future composer, Ludwig van Beethoven. Ludwig's life was pretty harsh. His father, a third-rate singer, was a drunkard and treated his son to regular beatings if the lad missed any notes on the piano, and even locked him in a dark, damp cellar. Therefore the young boy grew to despise his father, but loved his mother. Ludwig wasn't a child prodigy like Mozart, much to his father's anger in being humiliated before onlookers who'd come to hear the young boy play. Ludwig, however, refused to be his father's musical puppet. Okay, let's move on. We're now in Vienna, dubbed the City of Musicians, and there the young Ludwig sought to gain a reputation. Ludwig was making a name for himself, though not always with success. However, his notoriety came through a chance meeting with pianist Daniel Steibelt. In those days, musicians and particularly pianists would duel with one another to see who was the better musician. When Steibelt sat down to play, he worked up a storm and the audience loved it, much to the dismay of the by now bored Beethoven. Of course, when it was Ludwig's turn, he casually strolled over to the piano, took Steibelt's music and turned it upside down, then proceeded to play with it, turning its melodies inside out before going on to astound those listening. His performance was so amazing that Steibelt crept away in shame, vowing never to return to Vienna. Ludwig was king of improvisation. Through his lifetime close friend Wegeler, Beethoven was introduced to the influential Brüning family. Madame Brüning, a widow, had a particular affection for Ludwig, and taught him about literature and philosophy during his time with the family as a piano tutor to her children. Ludwig became a long-time friend of her son, Stefan Brüning. Another influential friend to Beethoven was the Count Ferdinand Ernst Waldenstein, who opened many doors of opportunity to him. There's no doubt that Ludwig's association and friendship with the Count elevated his status among other nobles and gentry. Although he continued to brightly shine, for Ludwig there was a dark cloud, ominously brewing, and a tragedy for any composer or musician. Deafness was at the door. In those days there was lead in wine and dinner plates, and these may have contributed to his beckoning hearing loss problem. This would strike a crippling blow to his public performances as a conductor. When Ludwig lost his hearing completely, his world was turned upside down. This was a crushing blow to any composer. He immediately sought out medical help. However, little was known about deafness in those days, and medical quacks abounded with so-called miracle cures which didn't work. Eventually Ludwig took to using ear trumpets. These were totally useless to him. In a final acknowledgement of defeat, he took to carrying a notebook for people to write in, to overcome the difficulty. With deafness fully upon him, Ludwig took self-imposed isolation from his patrons, public and friends. He stayed in his house and employed maids to cook and clean for him. This arrangement was volatile, however, and Beethoven became paranoid that the maids were pilfering. In fact, one maid in particular, he accused of stealing a gold penny from him, and after berating her, promptly dismissed the terrified girl. On that particular occasion, Ludwig's neighbor said he could hear Beethoven ranting and throwing things around violently. Beethoven was often prone to flying into rages, and this may have been due to his excessive daily coffee intake and too much bad wine, which exacerbated his stomach and bowel problems. In addition to these, Beethoven's room was full of leftover food and a full, smelly chamber pot, with clothes and manuscripts strewn all over the room. Beethoven's women. Like a lot of successful men, Beethoven had an array of lady friends, some casual and others in a more, deeper relationship. He wasn't always dirty and unkempt. Before his depression due to his deafness, and afterwards, he still had a string of admirers, no doubt because of his musical genius and celebrity status. Once, he was caught in a compromising position on a sofa with an unknown woman. Since his death, one mystery has baffled Beethoven scholars and investigators alike, and that is, who was the woman Beethoven called his immortal beloved? Let's go back in time, sift through a few facts and see if we can unravel the truth from fiction and reveal who this mystery woman really is, Beethoven's eternal or immortal beloved. First of all, there were a number of candidates who possibly could have been the immortal beloved. These include Anthony Brentano, Therese Malfatti, Elizabeth Rockel, Giulietta Guicciardi, and lastly, Josephine Brunswick. According to sources, Anton Schindler discovered a 10-page letter written in pencil in Beethoven's bad handwriting. In it, he asks the woman to meet him in what scholars believe was the town of Karlsbad, because of Beethoven's use of the initial K. As detectives, we need to rule out those women who had admiration for Beethoven and those who possibly had a deeper physical relationship with him. The first to go must be Giulietta Guicciardi. Scholars believe she was a red herring put forward by Schindler to protect the real immortal beloved. Next to go is Anthony Brentano, who did visit Karlsbad with her husband and child at the time. What rules her out is the deep friendship and respect for her and her husband by Beethoven. Two more women need ruling out in this mystery: Therese Malfatti and Elizabeth Rockel. Malfatti was owner of the Four Elise manuscript, and Beethoven had proposed to her as he had to Rockel, whom he met many times. However, they were not in possession of the immortal beloved letter, nor was their correspondence any help in identifying them as the mystery woman, so who do we have left in the running for the title? It falls to Josephine Brunswick, who is then Beethoven's immortal beloved.
In his lifetime, Beethoven penned 722 compositions including piano concertos, chamber music and symphonies. He stands a giant among others and is seen even today as a superman among composers.